so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is T.J. Inman, and we are here to talk Indiana football after a bye week that saw, I don't know, did we see any upsets this weekend besides Georgia Tech?
Yeah, not really. Basically a setting of the table, right? It was a calm week that set the table for what should be a fantastic rivalry weekend in the last regular season of this college football campaign, sadly. But really, it does, Thanksgiving week, it felt like a table-setting week, right? Because there is so much on the line this week, starting with, of course, Friday night, Indiana battling Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket.
College it is going to be very, very cold.
That rivalry that takes center stage first and foremost. Of course, larger things at play for Indiana after that.
Yeah. So, bucket game this week. I think the temperatures somewhere, I saw Crimson Cast put it out because they're weather geeks too. Put out like the high temperatures, like 22 for game time. So bundle up or, drink up, whatever keeps you warm. Big Ten came out with their tiebreakers yesterday. They were announced. There are, I believe, 8 of them. I think IU makes 7 of them, and IU makes it in 5 or 6 of them. So scenario 1, which would be Indiana versus Ohio State, that would be Indiana defeats Purdue, Ohio State defeats Michigan, Indiana and Ohio State clinch berths. Scenario number 2, which would be a rematch between Indiana and Oregon. IU wins, Michigan beats Ohio State, Oregon beats Washington. That, we have it on the site. It goes under all the tiebreakers. Scenario 3, Indiana versus Michigan, also possible. IU wins, of course. Michigan beats Ohio State. Washington beats Oregon. Ohio State versus Indiana, where Indiana is the second team in. Indiana could lose to Purdue and still make it if Ohio State beats Michigan and Oregon beats Washington. And then scenario 5, which some people are a little confused about, Oregon versus Michigan, both in at 8-1 in the conference. Purdue beats Indiana, Michigan defeats Ohio State, Oregon beats Washington. The thing they're confused about is there's no head-to-head tiebreakers among the teams. Well, right. I think that's because Oregon jumps up to that first seed, and then it's between Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. Right. And Indiana would lose that tiebreaker. So, bottom line is beat Purdue. You clinch your spot in the Big Ten title game, and you could go through a stress-free Saturday. For the most part, other than maybe stressing out who you're going to play and how much game tape you have to watch. Yeah. But it's a big game for both. Purdue's doing a blackout. Indiana fans have kind of put out there that they're going to stripe out Ross-Ade. We'll see what happens. Game's at 7:30 on NBC. It is a standalone college game on Friday night. So if you're a degenerate bettor or just a college football fan looking for a rivalry game, that's going to be the game you turn on. So it might not be for long, depending on how entertaining the game is. But you have a lot of storylines. You have Fernando Mendoza looking to increase his Heisman odds. You have Indiana looking to clinch a spot in the Big Ten title game. You have the Old Oaken Bucket, which maybe outside of Indiana doesn't really move the needle all that much, but it is the only game on TV that night. And then you have on the Purdue side, you have, can you end this Power 4 losing streak? They have not won a Power 4 game since 2023. So we'll see, we'll see what happens. There's more storylines on Indiana that are positive. On Purdue, it's, how bad has it gotten? Is there a way out? And what are the next steps? Indiana's been in this spot before with previous coaches and previous regimes, and anything could happen in this rivalry game. TJ, it brings me back to when I was 3 and didn't know about Indiana football, but to the 1989 game where you had a Heisman Trophy candidate in Anthony Thompson. You had Indiana looking for a bowl berth, so there are implications. And then you had a bad Purdue team. And the lesson learned there was Purdue went in and won 15-14.
Right.
No Heisman for AT, no bowl game, and that was in Bloomington, and no bowl game for IU. So anything could happen in this rivalry. Anything could happen in this rivalry game. In the bucket game, we've seen bad IU teams beat Purdue. We've seen bad Purdue teams beat good IU teams, and stuff like that. But give us a general overview of Purdue. They're 2-9 in the season. Their wins came in the first 2 weeks of the year: 31-0 over Ball State, 34-17 over Southern Illinois. They have not scored. They've scored over 20 points once in the back half of the season, and that was 24 points in a hilarious loss to Rutgers.
Yep. 17 straight Big Ten defeats by my count. Their last win was Tom Allen's last game. Last conference win was Tom Allen's last game as the head coach in Indiana. So since Indiana hired Curt Cignetti, Purdue has not won a single Big Ten game. The defense has been good at pressuring the quarterback, good in the red zone, actually 18th in the country in red zone success rate. Everything else has been pretty terrible on defense. Opponents are throwing the ball kind of at will against them. They are 175 yards rushing per game that they're giving up. Opposing quarterbacks completing almost 66% of their passes against Purdue. So bottom third of the country in that statistic. And the only team that is giving up more yards per play in the Big Ten is Rutgers, who are giving up a just diabolical 7.6 yards per play. That's hard to fathom, a power conference team with the defense that bad. But Purdue, right there with them in the basement, second to last in the Big Ten, 6.3 yards per play that they've given up. So I think that for Indiana on offense, you're looking at just taking care of the ball, and then the weather is, if it's that cold, if there's wind, if there's precipitation, that can play kind of an equalizer to slow down your speed, make your offense more sloppy, less likely to execute. If the weather holds up even a little bit, Indiana should be able to move the ball on Purdue whichever way they choose to, whether that's handing it off to Hemby and Kalon Black and Kobe Martin, or letting Mendoza, stretch the field and air it out some. On offense, Purdue, they've tried both quarterbacks. They've tried Ryan Brown. They've tried Malachi Singleton, the Arkansas transfer. Neither one has really found any semblance of consistent success. They're both under 60% completion rate. Their passing game is not stretching the field. They lost Devin Mockabee to injury, and they've not been able to successfully run the ball on a consistent basis since then. I think that they feel pretty okay about their running back that they've had filling in, Antonio Harris, is a sophomore that shows some promise. But when they've played good run defenses, they've been overwhelmed. The offensive line actually does a much better job this year than they did last year at preventing sacks. But I mean, their pressure rate it's like 5.4%, but it's still not an offensive line that is generating holes for the rushing attack. So offensively, 18 points a game. And if you take out Ball State and Southern Illinois, it's less than that. You're looking at just about 2 touchdowns a game at like 14 points. So I don't, you always look at, okay, what are the areas that scare you as an opponent? I don't know what Purdue's offense has that scares you. The quarterbacks, both of them are mobile and capable of moving the ball with their legs. That's something that Indiana has, I don't want to say struggled, but...
Well, they've seen better. Like, they don't have
absolutely
Nico Iamaleava or Aiden Childs.
Or Colton Joseph.
Or Colton Joseph.
Yeah.
They've faced those guys. And, to me, what worries me about the game in general, not that IU would necessarily lose, but Signetti has said this, you're going to get their best shot, probably.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like last year when this team quit on Ryan Walters and should have lost 69-0. They want, while 3-9 is terrible, beating Indiana makes your season. I mean, it does. And it's something you could hold over, your friends, if you're friends with Purdue people. It's something that they could hold over your head, kind of like Michigan does with Ohio State last year. Now, look, here's the thing. Would you trade a bucket loss for a national championship?
This year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I hate that that's a choice. But it is reality. I think, the rivalries make this sport and they make college sports, and you can see it dying. And we'll get into this in the off season about how I really don't like where college football is going.
Yeah.
But you're going to get Purdue's best shot. And that's what kind of scares me, especially with how banged up IU was going into the bye week. We'll see if they get people back. I would expect if it's 22 degrees and Elijah Surratt's hamstring does not feel great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't push it.
That's the question, right? Is how both teams are coming off a bye week.
Both teams are coming off a bye week. The question is, how long is Indiana going to? How long are where are they at health wise?
Yep.
I don't know if Drew Evans will be back, but you should get some other guys back. We never heard an update on Kaelon Black and EJ Williams, but you assume that they should be back. But how long do they stay in the game?
Right.
And how competitive is this game? Because, winning the bucket's
Benson's
great.
Ankle.
It doesn't mean that, Benson's ankle. Anybody who has dings or needs another work, I think they play, but how long they play will be. And the same thing with Fernando Mendoza. He's not been banged up. He has taken a lot of hits lately.
Against Wisconsin. Yeah, that was kind of the biggest concern coming out of that game was the number of hits that Mendoza took.
And there was one where he was very slow to get up, where it looked like he hit his head on the turf and then went to 10. Yeah. And you kind of, everybody, if you notice that, held their collective breath. So again, it's 22 degrees means the ground's probably frozen. And how much do you want to expose? As much as you want to put numbers up for Fernando Mendoza, if you're up 28-0 at halftime or 28-3, how much longer do you put him in for to where you feel comfortable? And also at 22 degrees, if you do take him out, he's probably out if Purdue makes it a little closer, and you're going to have to rely on Alberto to make some plays and get that. But those are my big questions going into the game. Who's healthy? Who's going to play? And how long they're going to play for? Let's switch over to the defensive side of Purdue. You said that they're not very good, which is probably the understatement of our podcast, which has had a lot of expert analysis like that over the last 10 years.
Well, the interesting part about this defense, there have been games where they've been competent. I think the best game that Purdue played this year was against Michigan. At Michigan, and that was 3 games ago. They've since got beat by Ohio State, as Ohio State just continues to go through the motions, and then they got thumped pretty good at Washington. But at Michigan, they lose 21-16, and Michigan's offense really did not get much of anything going.
No, and Purdue had a pick at the goal line, didn't they?
Yeah. It was a sloppy game that Purdue
almost pulled off.
They really had a chance to win that game. They should have beaten Minnesota.
They should have beaten Rutgers.
They should have beaten Rutgers and I won't say should have, but they could have beaten Michigan. So
and Northwestern. Northwestern was right there too. Northwestern was, it was 19.
They got shut out.
I think Ryan Braun got hurt early.
Yes.
Ryan Brown, not Ryan Braun. Ryan Brown got hurt.
You look at the defense and the points given up. There has not been a game where they've just let go of the rope and given up, 69 or 60 points. That has not happened this year, but they have been consistently scored on by good offenses.
Ohio State was without Carnell Tate, and it seems like for the last month, Ohio State has been playing at half speed.
Yeah.
And it was kind of reminded me of the Oregon game against Purdue last year, where they just came in, scored 35 points, packed it up, and said, "See ya."
Yeah. Like when can we get on the bus and go back to the airport? Yeah.
Yes.
It has seemed that way for Ohio State, but from a Purdue standpoint, I think that if you're an Indiana fan that hasn't watched a single second of them, they are significantly better than they were a season ago, just because they are still checked in. They're still dialed in. There's not probably the individual talent that Purdue team had in a couple of spots, like Dylan Thieneman or Max Clare, and missing Devin Mockabee hurts. But as an overall unit, they are more locked in. They have a defensive front that's capable of getting after the quarterback. They have a couple of decent linebackers, and their sack rate as a defense is okay. It's solid. It's top half of the country. So if you're looking at, okay, what do we want to see from Indiana's offense? I think you want to see that offensive line back to being dominant.
Yep.
Because against Wisconsin, it was not. It really hasn't been for a couple of weeks. So you want to see that offensive line, how they've utilized the bye week. Khalil Benson, is he back moving well? If Drew Evans is back, which I kind of doubt for this game, but if Drew Evans is not back, then how has Ajani used that extra practice time, getting starter reps, right?
And he's played well.
Yeah.
The guard spot, that it's Bray Lynch, and it's that right side of the line with Lynch and Benson, and maybe Lynch is trying to overcompensate for Benson's injury that's limiting him. And look, I'm not bashing Khalil. He played well during the season. He's playing on one leg, and it is severely impacting his mobility. So maybe that Bray Lynch is trying to overcompensate for that. another question, which I don't really super care about. You're going to play Byron Baldwin,
Right. He's at
because
the 4 games.
you could steal a fifth year, even though I don't think he'll be here for a fifth year.
Yep.
So, yeah, and the plan wasn't to redshirt him. So,
Right.
Yeah, Purdue has. First of all, I don't know who does their tackling stats, but they have like 3 guys over 91 tackles. So
Yeah.
it's so either their tackle guy is very, very generous on assisted tackles, but Manny Powell has been really well, really, really good coming over from UNLV. Taj Rael has 98 tackles. Now, if you're a Purdue fan or an Indiana fan looking at it, if you're defensive back, he is a safety, has 98 tackles. That means you're getting tackled, 5, 6, 7 yards down the field.
Yep. And the numbers back that up. That's what's happening.
Yeah. So it's you look at that, and that just tells you that he's in there. They're getting through the defensive line. He has 2.5 tackles for loss. So what is it? 4%, 3% of his tackles are behind the line of scrimmage. And then Charles Carrera, their linebackers eat up a lot of the tackles. They have like 200 tackles between them.
Yeah.
So does anything scare you about Purdue's defense, or is it just don't let them hit Mendoza and the offensive line has to look, because they really haven't looked dominant since Evans got hurt. They were good against Maryland.
Yep.
After the first quarter. And then Penn State beat them up. Wisconsin beat them up. But I would say that like UCLA, Michigan State game, and Oregon were probably the best that they've looked, including Illinois, throwing Illinois there too. Does anything else stand out that could give Indiana's offense trouble?
No, I really do think this is about the way that we feel about Indiana going into that Big Ten championship game. I think it is fair to feel like potentially Indiana peaked with that Oregon game, and that, going into this second bye week, that they were on the decline as a legitimate title threat versus where they were that week against Oregon. Now, what we don't know is that just an accurate statement at that time, and they've utilized this bye week to fix those minor issues, but more importantly, get revitalized, kind of fix those little nicks and bumps, and are aiming towards a second peak starting next week. Right? We don't know that. And I think that that's kind of what we're waiting now. Look, a C- performance at Purdue for this Indiana team probably gets you a comfortable win. It still does. So your question of, does anything about Purdue's defense scare me? No, but I want to see a rock solid, physical, dominant performance. And I think that what game plan wise, given the temperature, I think if Curt Cignetti got to plan the game the way that he wants it to go, I think that you would see a couple of early touchdowns with the passing offense, firing, the defense getting Purdue off the field quickly, you build the lead, and then just start pounding the ball down their throat on the ground. Yeah, I do not think that Curt Cignetti in his head is envisioning a game where Mendoza throws the ball 36 times for, 285 yards and 4 touchdowns and adds in a couple carries. I think that he's probably envisioning 20 pass attempts, build a lead, and then hand it off to Hemby, Kayvon Black, get Kobe Martin a lot of work in the second half, and just rack up 250 yards on the ground and suffocate.
Fernando Mendoza has not thrown over 31 passes in a game this year.
Yeah, and I don't think that
he shouldn't come close. Yeah, he shouldn't come close to that number. He'd probably be, in similar games. Maryland 21 passes, UCLA 22.
Yeah.
Illinois a ridiculous 21 of 23. Indiana State 19 of 20. Like, you want to see him get in rhythm, because I think that's the biggest thing is, rest versus rust.
With clean pockets.
Clean pockets, get into rhythm, use those first down throws to get into second and short, and then use the run game. Take a shot if you need it. As nice as it is that he's the Heisman front runner, I don't think you need a 300-yard game. Now, he could do that on 15 passes. He could. But I don't think you're going to need it like that. I would also look to get some of your, reserve wide receivers in there with him as well, because you're probably going to need them for the playoff run. So, like, more Jonathan Brady, more LeBron Bonds. Charlie Becker's been in there with him a ton. Buck yelled at me a couple weeks ago because I said, well, how about the chemistry with Surratt? He has pretty good chemistry with Charlie Becker as well. So I don't know what Moron suggested. He had more chemistry with Elijah Surratt, but him and Becker are on the same page. But Kobe Martin, maybe Sean Cuono, like, get those freshmen who have an extra game to play, because you're going to need to see what you have too. Key matchup, TJ. For me, it's the mental side of it. Indiana's in a spot that they've never been in before. You're looking to go to the Big Ten championship game. Everybody's expecting you to play Ohio State. That was kind of the game that put a pin in IU's title hopes last year. And okay, maybe they're not just at that level. And you could get caught looking ahead. Now, it hasn't happened under Curt Cignetti.
Right.
But it is one of those things where, you're going into a game where you could clinch a Big Ten title game spot. The fans will be into it. And just like a lot of these other games where if you kind of start slow, then you're giving Purdue's fans a reason to cheer. And there'll be some Purdue fans there. It's at Purdue. They usually show up for the bucket game pretty well.
Sure.
But there should be a large IU contingent. Give them something to cheer about. Don't look ahead to. So to me, it's all the mental side of it. Is hunt complacency, and we're not looking ahead to whoever it is, whether it's Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, whoever. You're not looking ahead. And I think Curt Cignetti's focused on Purdue. I think he is laser focused on Purdue. And I think Fernando Mendoza is laser focused on Purdue, based on his comments in the Zoom the other week where he talked about Purdue like the 07 Patriots. So they are taking the Boilers seriously. And, we haven't brought it up yet. Barry Odom's comments at the beginning of the season, they're somewhere in Indiana's locker room.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think your matchup is 100% accurate. I think that is the most important one. I will be keeping an extra close eye on that offensive line, just, again, to see if there's just that extra 10% of physical dominant edge that just hasn't quite been there since Drew Evans went out with his injury, to see if this bye week, and to be fair, with Khalil Benson being banged up as well, and that's 40% of your offensive line that you've had to either reshuffle or is limited. So to see coming off the bye week, if Bob
and Zen Mikulski too.
That's true.
So,
to see if Bob Bostad has been able to just kind of rediscover that magic that was there for the first basically 2/3 of the season that had this unit being talked about as a Joe Moore Award winner.
Yeah.
So just kind of see if that's back, and numbers might not necessarily tell the story there, but we'll know it, right? We'll know it when we're watching the game.
It's an eye test thing. It's to
Yeah.
know it when you see it. And all the talk has been we got to get to the bye week. We got to get to the bye week. We're so
Right.
banged up. So has the drop off been because they're a little banged up and tired, or is it because Johnny's not as good as Evans and
Yeah.
she's reshuffling people around, or there's just a drop off that hey, you started to play better defensive lines and you're not as good as you thought you were a month and a half ago.
Right. And the it's a fool's game to go back and look at, oh well, this team did this after you play them, but a lot of concern about Indiana's performance against Wisconsin and how it just didn't feel quite like what we thought it would. Well, the week before, Wisconsin won a game, right, against Washington and played much better. Indiana still beat them quite comfortably. And then Wisconsin turns around and beats Illinois by 17. I do think maybe there's something to, hey, Wisconsin, they have gotten quite a bit better since announcing Luke Fickell was going to be staying around and making a change at quarterback. So, I just maybe that's not a game that we should be retroactively freaking out about.
No, same with Penn State. I mean, Penn State's looked really good the last 2 weeks, and we'll see what they do. But, man, their defense was Nebraska's without their starting quarterback, but they buried Nebraska. Yeah. So they buried Nebraska. We'll see. Penn State could ultimately go to the bowl game. I think they have records this week.
They will go to the bowl game.
They will probably go to a bowl game.
They might not play in it.
Yeah,
but.
Yes, they will become bowl eligible. We'll see if they accept the bid to the bowl. IU will raise the victory flag and keep the bucket in Bloomington if. I'll let you lead off here, TJ.
Yeah, I think we'll stay with the focus side of it. That's really what it's going to be about. And for me, that translates to turnovers. If they win the turnover battle, they're going to win this game in a blowout. If they lose the turnover battle, it opens the door for Purdue to make this competitive.
Yeah, I think, to go along with their turnovers, it's play a clean game. There have been a couple penalties on IU. They didn't really have much against Wisconsin, but they had that holding call. But play clean, no missed kickoffs, no punts that are 20 yards out of bounds. Don't fumble the ball. Don't turn it over. Get off the field on third down. And to me, it's play your game. This is a game where you should dominate the line of scrimmages, and you should be able to play the way you want to play. Wisconsin came in and ate up over 7.5 minutes of the first quarter on their first drive. Now they missed a field goal, but they dictated the pace. Penn State dictated the pace. Iowa dictated the pace. And that all surrounded with their defensive lines are pretty darn good. However, you look at the Oregon game, Indiana went in there where it was aggressive, played their game, got out to a lead, said, hey, we're here in for the long run, and they walked out of Autzen with a win, which everybody thought USC was going to do, and they didn't. Because, Oregon's a pretty damn good team. So play your game, dictate the pace. Don't let Purdue bait you into anything. Don't let, if they start smack talk, just, hey, man, walk away. They're 2-9.
Yeah.
And you're 11-0 with a lot more on the table than this right now. So no targetings in the second half.
Good point.
No ejections, nothing. Don't get anything dumb in the second half of this game, because if you lose somebody to targeting in the second half of this game and is dumb as that rule is,
Yeah.
as much as we all hate it, it is still an enforceable rule. You got to follow it. So, best bets, TJ. What are your best bets for this week?
Yeah, so IU, last I looked, favored by 28.5. I believe that total, do you have that? Was it 52.5? Is that what it was?
I think so.
Yeah. So, given what you're looking at there, that's an implied total or an implied finish of something.
It's up to 54.5 on BetMGM. So it's a 28.5 point spread,
So
up to 54.5 total.
So something around a 42-13 type game, which I think is reasonable. I would take Indiana to cover. Purdue is losing Big Ten games by an average of about 15.5 points per game. What I would consider the good teams that they have played, minus that Michigan game, which was incredibly sloppy from Michigan. But the good teams that they have played, which would be Ohio State, and I'll throw Washington in there as well. They've got manhandled. Ohio State could have won that game by way more. And as we talked about, they've been going through the motions. I don't think Indiana's going to do that. I expect a pretty full throttle first half from Indiana.
Yeah.
So I would try to find a first half spread for Indiana, which I'm looking at now, if I can locate it.
I don't have it, but here's
not
one
out.
for you, TJ.
There we
Team
go.
total for Purdue or temperature? Which one's going to be higher?
Oh, that's a good one. Temperature will be higher than Purdue's.
Not including
total.
wind chill.
First half spread, Indiana minus 16.5. I would take Indiana to cover that. I expect IU to be up by 3 touchdowns or more at halftime. Second half, and what would hesitate for me to take Indiana is how hard IU is going to push. They don't need style points. They don't. They don't
need to. I mean, it goes back to Illinois, right? You're just going to hand the ball. Can they stop Kobe Martin?
Yes.
Can they stop Alberto Mendoza and Kobe
Right.
Martin? I do think you're going to limit possessions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be kind of a running clock, fourth quarter, if you will, where it's not by rule, but Indiana is just going to be wanting to keep that clock moving, get off the field, get out of the cold, celebrate with the bucket, celebrate your undefeated regular season, and start preparation for what we assume is going to be Ohio State right away. But I would go Indiana first half total of 16.5, take them there. I would also take Indiana to cover. I would stay away from the total just because I do not know how much of a factor the weather is going to play. I would lean towards the over just because I think IU is going to have a lot of success on offense. But with the weather and how focused IU is going to be in the second half on, churning out a lot of plays, as we just talked about, I think they're going to be more focused on getting out of there in the second half, healthy and intact. So those would be my best bets. The big one is Indiana first half spread of minus 16.5. I think IU is going to get out fast and play really well in that first half. It's just a focused statement to themselves, not to anybody else, but to themselves of, hey, we got this. We have not, we're not petering out here at the end of the season. We got this. We are who we think we are, and show themselves that they're ready for the challenge that's ahead of them.
Yeah, let's go score predictions. I'll go first. I'm going to go 52-3 Indiana until proven otherwise. I do think that Indiana can score on anybody and score on these teams. Now they might pull their starters in the middle of the third quarter, but these backups and Kobe Martin should be more than a mop-up guy, and he's starting to be. Can score points as well. Don't forget that the defense could get some turnovers and score some points off of there. It's not going to be windy from the forecast I have now. It is just going to be really, really cold. So that should help the offense put some points up. Do you think Purdue maybe moves the ball a little bit to get a field goal, either early or late? And then, Sig's going to put his foot on the throat. He's going to take this game very, very seriously because it's a rivalry game. He called them out on the basketball court on his first day on the job. And it's what you want to do. You want to crush your in-state rival so that, they're thinking, oh, man, we went 2-10 again. Is Barry Odom the right guy? And they're stuck, like IU has been stuck in perpetual rebuildingness.
I will go Indiana wins this one comfortably, not quite as big of a blowout, 42-10 in favor of Indiana, a very comfortable, I'll say something like a 28-0 lead, at halftime or shortly after halftime, and then just a coasting to the finish line for Indiana there. So I think we're, generally speaking, on the same page heading into this one, not expecting a close game, not expecting a nail-biter, but plenty to look for, plenty to really pay attention to beyond just the scoreline. I think we're both interested to see if this team looks a bit reinvigorated and not refocused, because I didn't feel like it was a lack of focus, but reinvigorated and fresh and ready.
Just with the extra oomph of energy.
The edge. And again, it's not necessarily definable by the numbers, but I think we all kind of know what we saw the last couple of weeks before that bye week. It's important that gets recaptured, because otherwise, the team that played the last couple of weeks that IU was out there, I do not think that team, one, I don't think that team beats Ohio State or is particularly close against them. Nope. And two, I don't think that team beats a quality opponent in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. I think that the team that we saw before that little stretch, which again wasn't bad, but just a little off, the team we saw before that is capable of winning a national title. So I think we're interested to see which version comes out of the bye week.
Yeah, that's, we need to get to the bye week. I called it dragging the corpse to the bye week, although Indiana wasn't like dead, but you were limping into the bye week in terms. You wanted to put it in video game terms. You wanted to get to that checkpoint so you could get your bed pack and move on. And I think hopefully that has happened. We'll see. I would assume that Elijah Surratt gives it a go. If not, fine, whatever. I assume that Drew Evans will need another week. Benson has played through it, so I would assume that he looks better. Seeing that it wasn't a super serious, he wasn't going to make it worse. And I don't think Sig would put him on the field if he knew the injury would make it worse. No update on EJ Williams yet. We'll see what Sig said today. Brandon Frankie would be nice to have back, but again, at 22 degrees, and if you're coming off a pulled muscle, it's probably not the best time to come back, and you could survive with Quinn Warren. Who else is banged up? Kalon Black is another one you want to see maybe in limited duty and then put Kobe Martin in, but he has taken a ton of hits this year along with Roman Hemby to where maybe you could take some pressure off of them and put a little bit more on Kobe Martin's shoulders. So that does it. again, Indiana kicks off against Purdue on Friday night. It's a Friday night game on NBC at 7:30 from Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette. We'll be up there. We'll have all your updates on X. We'll have a live game thread as well. And then we're going to do our football chat, and I'll have Matt Weaver on tonight for another podcast. So we'll have all our Bucket Week coverage as well. You could subscribe to us at HoosierHuddle.com, $30 for a year, $3 a month. If you don't want to pay, there is a free version, which kind of limits some of your access to our articles. But it is a great deal with great coverage and crossover season now, and a chance to follow along as Indiana gets ready to go into a unprecedented postseason where you could clinch a Big Ten title game spot, and then hopefully a couple games in January, getting ready to go play for a national championship. Who would have thought that 5 years ago?
Not us. We knew it'd get better, but yeah, nobody saw this coming. But it's been a super fun roller coaster with a lot more ups and downs the past, really since Coach Signetti came in. And I know.
But is a roller coaster fun when you're going up or only when you're going down?
I mean, the views are nice. Views are nice going up. But
that's just my nitpicking on like subpar is bad. No, subpar is good in golf. You want to be subpar in golf.
That's true. That is true. That is true. It by golf standards, Kurt Signetti is on fire and looking like the Europeans during the Ryder Cup, pumping his fists and winning basically every match, every hole on the match play circuit. So I think that we all do need to attempt to enjoy this. I know it's stressful and, it's nerve-wracking and it can get annoying listening to nitpicks about Indiana's resume versus some 9-2 SEC team or whatever. But
I don't even listen to it. I just enjoy it. Okay, the rankings are out. Here's what they say. I put it up. We have a nice discussion in the forum. So, All right, that does it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can sign up for a membership also at HoosierHuddle.com. Follow us on X at Hoosier_Huddle. And that'll do it for today's podcast.